Good evening, everyone, and thank you all for joining this evening for the Palm Springs International Airport Commission meeting on Wednesday, September 22nd at 5:32 p.m. I will request our Vice Chair, Kevin Cochran, to lead us to the Pledge of Allegiance. Kevin, are you there?
I think he's on mute.
Kevin, you are muted. Kevin,
I don't,
Okay.
hold on real quick. Forget it. Okay, Kevin is now on. He just joined us. He's mute. He's okay now.
Kevin, can you unmute yourself and lead us to the Pledge of Allegiance?
Be happy to. I pledge allegiance
To the
Flag
of the United States
of America,
to the republic
the republic for which it stands, one nation,
Nation.
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Kevin. And knowing that the agenda was posted September 16, 2021, Nadia, will you have the roll call, please?
Commissioners, please take a moment to unmute your microphones. Thank you. Commissioner Adams,
present.
Breslin. Commissioner Breslin.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Budillo,
Present.
Burke,
Present.
Corcoran,
present.
Dada,
Present.
Feltman,
Here.
Freemuth,
Yeah.
Hedrick,
Here.
Hearn.
Here.
Hughes,
Present.
Commissioner Martin excused. Miller,
Here.
Payne,
Present.
Commissioner Philbrook excused. Pye,
Here.
Schmitz,
Here.
Suero, and Wheel.
Here.
Thank you.
And we do have a quorum, right, Nadia?
We do, Chairman.
Terrific. I would like to see if we can accept the agenda as presented or any changes.
So moved to accept the agenda.
If we have a motion, need a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, at this time, we will entertain public comments. And Nadia, I believe we have Jeffrey Bernstein who would like to speak. Jeffrey, are you on the Zoom call?
Chairman, I think that I had heard that Jeffrey had a conflict tonight, which is why he put that comment in writing that we did at the committee.
Thank you so much. So everyone has a copy of Jeffrey's comments. Having said that, we move on. Do we have anyone else, Nadia?
Chairman, there's nobody else requesting to speak publicly tonight.
Terrific. Then at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from our July meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
And we also need the approval for our August 24th meeting.
So moved.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any, None, we move on to introduction and presentation. So I will let our Executive Director Ulysses Aguirre take it from here.
Okay, as by way of introductions and presentations, just not necessarily an introduction, but Commissioner Jill Philbrook from the Cathedral City was reappointed to another 3-year term. She's not with us this evening, but that is a good thing. And then we would like to welcome Commissioner John Payne from the City of Palm Springs. He was appointed at the September 9th meeting by City Council. So John, welcome to the commission.
Thank you very much, Ulysses. It's a pleasure and an honor to participate with everyone. Thank you.
Okay.
And John, welcome aboard.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Commissioner Dada, that completes the introductions and presentations. I can move straight into the Executive Director report if you so wish.
Yes, please.
Okay. The city manager will not be joining us tonight. He's out of town on business. In his place, Jay Barada, the economic director for the city of Palm Springs, as well as Captain Kovalev from the police department will be with us to provide the briefing on the cooling center. Also, Patrick Tallarico is here with us tonight to give us a update on the demonstration garden. Patrick? And I thought I saw him.
You want to use my phone to call in?
He has not called in yet, so
Or you could call in too on your phone.
I guess I could.
On this, if you call this number.
Okay.
Nadia, Victoria, please mute your phone, your microphones.
Oh, I have the microphone.
It's working. Okay, good.
It's working, so
It's
yes.
working. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
sorry about that.
We're sorry for the technical difficulties on throughout this evening. So I'll get back to my report. Just wanted to update the commission that U.S. Marine Corporal Hunter Lopez's body arrived here at Palm Springs last Thursday afternoon at Signature Flight Services. And with the assistance of the USO and the Palm Springs Police Department, everything went well for that detail. Our passenger traffic, I'm excited and happy to report that August of 2021 versus August of 2019, our traffic was up again, this time by 20.4%. So that means 3 straight months, June, July, and August, we have been above the same respective months passenger traffic for 2019. So this has turned out to be the busiest summer in the airport's history. We have gotten preliminary numbers from the TSA regarding September. Happy to report also that those numbers are just as strong, above 2019 numbers as June, July, and August respectively were. So that is exciting news. At this time, I would like to share my screen and give a short, show a short video regarding the 2 new ARF trucks that the city received. So bear with me as I launch this one. Hopefully you can see this.
Is there sound?
Can you not hear the sound?
No.
No.
I'm able to hear it on my side.
Hmm.
I'm sorry. So I'll try to fill in a little bit of the narrative. These are showing brand new trucks that were delivered in late August of 2022, just last month. They're talking about the capabilities that the airport now has the highest and the most recent technology having to do with aircraft rescue and firefighting. They're talking about some of the capabilities that it has over and above the prior equipment. It's going to show a couple of different pieces of apparatus, like it's talking about its FLARE, which is a infrared camera that it can utilize to identify hotspots within a fire or within foam to make sure that they know where they're extinguishing the fire or if any bodies are in that general area. It talks about the fact that it's got 1,500-gallon tanks and also fuel firefighting foam to help them with the firefighting efforts. And so they're talking about the fact that the life of the ARF trucks is about 15 years. And so it was a good thing. It cost about $2 million, and those dollars came from FAA funding through the Airport Improvement Program. So I'm sorry about the volume on this one.
So Ulysses, each vehicle is $2 million?
No, collect $2 million. It was right underneath that. So each one is somewhere about $900,000, truly outfitted with everything. The FAA has a very boilerplate template that they use to identify what are the requirements of the respective airports. The Fire Department Apparatus Committee, as it's called, identified about 7 alternate additives that they wanted to the equipment. So that pushed it up over about $900,000. And along with that, we added some additional warranty and also some training for our maintenance fleet mechanics to be able to service the equipment throughout the years. So that was new equipment. We're excited about that. We had 3 old ARF trucks that were placed in service all at the same time in 2003. And we are working right now to determine which of those 3 trucks, maybe 1 or 2, we will be able to refurbish and put that back into service along with the 2 brand new trucks. And if we're going to might have a 4th truck in reserve in case we lose one of them. Our index, as it's called by FAA terminology, only requires us to have 2 trucks. So these brand new trucks help us meet our index. The 3rd truck is one that's an extra, and so we may have a 4th one as well, just in case that we absolutely need it. So this was a great acquisition for equipment that was much needed to provide it to our outstanding fire department staff. So
any salvage value on the truck that
we won't know that, but there probably is for old vehicles, for old trucks like that. There may be some airports that don't have a lot of funding. They may be able to purchase it, or a company who refurbishes fire trucks and resells them may be interested as well. But we won't know that until the very end when we put these up for sale or auction.
Thank you. Any other commissioners, any comments?
I'd just like to give a shout out to Daniel pitching a great press release and super coverage on this. Well done.
Oh, thank you, Todd.
And then the last item for my report this evening is I'd just like to congratulate Nadia. She, through a competitive selection process, she was promoted to a new position called Executive Program Administrator. We are excited for her. We think it's going to be a great compliment to our staff to be able to have her experience in the airline industry and the airport here more specifically to help us out. Unfortunately, what that means for the commission is that she will no longer be direct support to the commission. So we are moving to replace her with somebody else. So congratulations to Nadia on that. So
Nadia, on behalf of the commission, congratulations.
Thank you very much, Chairman Dada.
And that concludes my report this evening.
Terrific. Ulysses, are we going to have Jay Virata take over?
I think the next item is 9A, which is the strategic visioning.
Okay.
So Commissioner Dada or Commissioner Corcoran, would you like to take this one, or you should be able to see my screen?
Yes, we are able to see your screen, and maybe Kevin, you would like to take over, knowing that you were very much involved in this.
Be happy to do it. Thank you. As you all know, we were asked to provide input on what should be 2 priorities that we would recommend to the city manager and also to the city council would be our primary focus for our work in 2022. And the report you see posted here shows the summary of the numbers. And I know that Ulysses had shared this with you earlier. And we've had a variety of discussions looking at not only the results, but the implications of the results. And we have a recommendation we'd like to make. First, or I'd like to put forward, I should say, for further discussion. First, just a couple comments. One of the things when reviewing the rankings that we discovered that many of these, and they're the ones that are bracketed in red, the red parenthesis, many of these items, while really important and worthy of our time and attention, weren't necessarily appropriate for this because of many of them are either more related to a strategic planning initiative or had much longer term implications that would require multiple years to really study and implement and also to fund. And so we bracketed those and the red parentheses with a proposal to Ulysses and to all of you that we address these in a separate forum. One idea that we kicked around the table is that we would have a strategic planning offsite sometime early in our next year or later this fall, perhaps, to get a deeper understanding of each of these that are highlighted there, and then perhaps come back with a longer term perspective, which could affect our overall master plan that would address some or all of these issues. I know in just talking to Ulysses, that many of these have lots of factors, lots of implications, obviously even beyond just funding, that it was helpful to learn more about and to know before we could really make a recommendation to put these as one of the top 2. So one of the things we're suggesting is that we not ignore these, but we put these into a strategic planning process. And the logistics behind that and timing, whatever, would be something we would work on between now and the end of the year. So that left us with the airport rental project, which got the most votes, but also it is the project that is the most developed, the most underway. And so again, after talking to Ulysses in depth about this, we think this is the obvious first choice, since over the next 12 months, there are going to be many, many, many layers of information and study that's going to be presented to us around both the scope of the car rental project, some significant trade-offs between different options that are emerging from the needs analysis that was completed prior to COVID, and implications long-term about how we want to do this, how we want to move forward with this, implications to customer experience, things like that. So the Conrack project would be our first recommendation for focus in the next 12 months, next year. The second was airport commission, or the airport concessions. Now, I was personally surprised that this did not get a higher ranking, but we understand after talking to individual commissioners what some of their thoughts were about other choices they made. But we're recommending that this should be the second, and here's why. For those of you who are new to the commission, we are in a situation now where our present vendor Parity stepped in and took over both retail and the food and beverage concessions when COVID began, with a contract that will expire on April 30th of 2023. So it's a little bit more than a year and a half from now. We were in the process of both defining an RFP for both food and beverage and retail concessions, sharing that with national, and also with the urging that anyone who would participate in this would feature local brands that would reflect Palm Springs businesses, again, retail and food businesses, to provide much more of a local flavor and increase the Palm Springs brand overall. Some of the local restaurants, for example, when they looked at what was required in this project, none of them really had the capital that was required to go ahead and to bid on this. So what happened was the 4 leading national suppliers began to partner with local vendors. And we're in the process of putting together proposals that would be funded and run by the national players, but would include local vendors. It was really moving in a great direction. There was a lot of enthusiasm. And then COVID. So now we're in a situation where we have an RFP that needs to be updated. We need to look at those requirements again, and also consider, what have we learned from COVID and what have we learned in terms of airport services that may change some of the requirements or enhance some of those requirements we like to see in this RFP. So there's work that has to be done on that. Then there's the process of, again, reaching out to the national players and to the local, potential local providers, and making sure that the local folks know how to engage in this RFP and perhaps how to engage in some of these national partners. And then a selection or proposals have to come forward. A selection has to be made. It has to be announced in time for allowing for the proper planning and implementation to make sure that we can get everything done and be able to implement this quickly starting in May of 2023. So there are lots of moving pieces to this. There's lots of opportunities that should involve the commission, because we feel this is a certainly important initiative in terms of first impressions, customer experience, overall brand at the airport. And for that reason, we felt this was worthy of our second proposed project for 2022. Let me just stop just for a second and Aftab ask, Aftab, could you add any color to that overview, and did I miss anything?
No, I think you covered every important salient point, sir.
Thank you. So this is our recommendation. The intent of bringing this to you in this format is to give us a little head start. Again, we are open to your reactions to this, other input. If there's other priorities that you think we should consider or have missed, this is our time to step forward. But that's the proposal on the table, and we're open to your ideas and suggestions.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
This is Peter. I take some exception to it. I support both the car rental facility and the airport concessions, absolutely 100%. When it comes to the international air services, let me point out something. Number one, as I recall, the airport, the city manager was telling us to consider both immediate, midterm, and long-term. The international air services idea requires several, I repeat, several years of implementation. To pass on that at this time is we'll just keep passing on, and it will, if it takes 3 years now, a year from now, it will take 3 years, or 2 years from now, it will take 3 years. And as long as we score, as we believe that is the way we are going to about it, I truly have to object to not consider the international air services. Thank you.
So Peter, to answer your question, the city manager has requested 2 priorities. And I understand that the item I did get a very high ranking of 19. And we all know it, that in order to get the immigration and custom facilities and to also have a dedicated building to construct also go through a lot of hoops from different federal departments to get all these approvals. Yes, it is a long-term plan. Maybe next year we could include that as our high priority. And maybe Ulysses, you can share with the commissioners what you share with me and Kevin.
I believe what Commissioner Dada is asking about is just a very quick overview. I won't spend a lot of time in details regarding what would have to be done from a physical improvement perspective to accommodate international flights from origination cities that do not have pre-clearance. Our current Canadian flights that come into Palm Springs all go through airports where the arriving passengers here get pre-cleared in Canada before they arrive here. So when they touch down here, they are considered basically screened as a domestic passenger, and they go collect their luggage with all the rest of the domestic travelers in our baggage claim area. To be able to accommodate a direct flight from an origination city that doesn't have pre-clearance, when that aircraft lands here at the airport and parks, that aircraft cannot be moved until the Customs and Border Protection allows for anybody to enter it, for anybody to come off the plane, passengers or crew, and anybody who comes off that plane has to be enter into a sterile corridor that leads directly from the gate to a facility that will have the passengers go through customs, immigration, and agricultural inspection. And so we have to set up a sterile corridor. We have to set up a different facility where the Customs and Border Protections can provide those services, as well as where the luggage can be dropped off at. That is separate from the baggage claim area that currently is used for domestic flights. And that passenger has to retrieve their luggage out of that international baggage claim area, and both passenger with their luggage exits at that particular time. For flights that would come from Canadian cities or Mexican cities, they may be able to be accommodated with 737 size aircraft that we are able to accommodate here. But larger aircraft, flights from further destinations, especially if overseas, whether it be from Europe, Australia, Europe, and so forth, would probably require larger gauge aircraft with wider wingspans, longer lengths of the fuselage, which then requires us to create those parking positions adjacent to the international arrival facility, and to be able to accommodate all those different services that aircraft would require. So being able to accommodate international flights, as Peter correctly identified, would take an effort, both in the approval process, planning, building it out to be able to accommodate it here at the airport, and would probably require different facilities outside of our current terminal, maybe even outside of our current concourses, to be able to handle those aircraft. CBP facilities at the Federal Inspection Services facility, as well as the circulation on the roadway to be able to pick up those passengers once they are ready to enter the U.S. with their luggage. So that's kind of is a summary of everything that would be needed.
May I comment, please?
Please.
Yes, Peter.
Yeah, on Alyssa's comments. First of all, let me point out, we're not just talking about overseas flight. There are a number of Canadian cities. I'll give you 3 examples right now. Victoria, BC, Abbotsford, right outside Vancouver, Hamilton, Ontario, which is the greater Toronto area. None of these airports have pre-clearance. So Swoop, which is headquartered in Hamilton, could not fly from Hamilton into Palm Springs because there are no pre-clearance. In terms of aircraft type, I also have to disagree because we are now looking at new aircraft type that entering the industry. I'm talking about A320XLR, which is probably made for airports our size. So in that respect, I disagree. Also, we will eventually have to address the capacity increase at the regional concourse. When we talk about building a facility, absolutely, I agree with Ulysses. And that's why it's so important that we start this process now. But to me, it would be obvious, my suggestion, have a two-gate construction at the regional concourse right now that will serve a dual purpose. Namely, when there are no international flights, we use it for domestic arrivals. He is also correct that we need to have a sterile facility to process immigration and baggage. And therefore, I think this would be the time we might want to consider an additional baggage claim area on the northern side, on the southern side, where on the regional concourse. So where, number one, we could build a facility where international passengers can go through FIS facilities that are in compliance with the authorities' guidelines. And when they're not in use, we will use it for the regional passengers that are arriving at the regional concourse now. And just think of it, how convenient that would be for our regional passengers that arrive at the regional concourse if they could just step outside and get their baggage instead of wandering, which is a cumbersome long walk down to the current baggage claim area. Now, all of this, I don't consider the sky in the pie in the sky, but rather that this is something urgent because of the length of time it requires. And when you look at our hospitality industry, everyone will tell you the biggest challenge we have are getting passengers here during the summer months. Now, the only passengers that I can think of, and that most of these people in the industry can think of, are happening to come from Europe. So this is not going to happen next year or the year after, but if we don't start addressing it now, we are missing the boat and we're doing our local hospitality a disservice.
Thank you, Peter, for your comments. Any other commissioners have any comments?
Yes,
Yes.
hello everyone.
I have comments
comment
too.
Please.
Who?
This is Guillermo Suero. I will thank you everyone for all your comments. To respectfully make a comment, I can say the San Diego Airport International Arrival Facility is quite clever. It's a very small facility. You pick up luggage, and at the same time, you have the CBP officer right there. It's so small and so efficient and allows San Diego to have international flights. Very efficient and very small footprint as well. Very small. So maybe someone can take a look for future planning or for ideas. It's very efficient and very low cost. I mean, obviously CBP activities are different, but we know about that. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you for your comments. And anyone else?
Yes, Chairman,
yes.
I do.
And
Yes. If I could briefly just say, I agree with Peter. I mean, if you look at the rankings and the number of points that each of the, and how this was prioritized, the International Air Service really was the second highest scoring initiative that then really relays that not only Peter, but the other commissioners also feel that this is important. As Peter said, this is a multi-year effort. This is not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen next year. It will take time for this to get implemented. Kicking the can down the road is something that's quite often done. I think we should move forward with this and see what we can do, at least identify in writing what really are the impediments of moving forward, but also what are the advantages right now. And I think that that would help. But I do agree with Peter. It is time to get this done. Thank you.
And I respectfully appreciate your comments. The reason we selected airport concession as the number 2 priority is that the current agreement is expiring April of 2023. So we have to submit something to the city manager by April of 2022, so they have it something before the agreement is awarded to the new concessionaire. Because I know, and Ulysses, correct me if I'm saying anything out of line, the contract will be awarded for maybe 5 or 10 years.
Probably 5 years at a minimum, but longer, more likely because of the investment required in the capital improvements to renovate and upgrade facilities.
So that was the reason we put airport concession as our immediate second high priority, knowing we have a timeline and a deadline. That was the reason behind it.
I believe Ken and Rolf have been holding their hands up for a while.
Mr. Chair, I disagree with my fellow commissioners. I do not think, I think for the reasons that have been stated, that may be a long-term goal, but having some familiarity with airports, bringing international travelers, I don't think is taking advantage of what we need to do within our own internal goals and objectives. I think the concessions is a project that is moving forward. It's an operational project. It is moving forward. I don't think the city council is looking at that as what they're thinking about strategic planning. And I think that's going to move forward no matter what this commission does, because it's operational needs and it needs to be done. So I think that can be off the table because it's already moving forward. It's already going, and it's not showing the council that we're looking at the 2 to 4 or 5 year window, which I thought was kind of the exercise for this particular thing. I do want to thank both our chair and vice chair for putting all this effort into it, and I want to applaud you all. But we need to think strategically, and we need to think what is happening in the United States and where the dollars coming from some of these projects. And one of the things I thought that should be a higher priority is the integrated transportation system. I do not agree necessarily that all of the ones outlined in red are all the same. I think some of them are very different and can be talked about maybe at a future strategic planning meeting. But we are going to be spending as a United States, as a nation, maybe up to $3.5 trillion in transportation and infrastructure. And the federal government is going to be giving that to many types of organizations, including the airport. So I think some of our strategic planning needs to look at what we're going to be able to use in those resources and how can we get some of those resources to be able to fulfill some of the needs that the airport are going to need. And transportation is a huge number within that plan. And we should be talking about projects that the city and the airport staff can do with some of that money. And that's why I kind of disagree that the international flight increase is going to be, that's more like a 5 to 7 year plan. And there is so many agencies that you're going to need to take care of that I just don't think that is in the time frame at this point that the city council is really looking for. However, I think we need to capitalize on what we can do and on the resources to bring these types of projects to us. And so I'm advocating that we should somehow figure out how can we better leverage and use the national and state dollars that are going to be coming to us through the $3.5 trillion infrastructure bills that are happening in Congress today.
Thank you. So, any other commissioner
Yes.
comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a couple of comments. I mean, I don't disagree with a lot of the things that have been said about what some of the other priorities are in transportation. If we talk about length of time, I mean, I may remind you how long we've been waiting for the rail service and how long this is still going to be taking to get rail, even hopefully as part of an integrated transportation system. And that's in process as well. And if the concession, the other part that Commissioner Miller was talking about is already in process. Nothing would prevent us from, saying, why does it have to be 2 priorities? Why can't it be 3? And the International FIS facility is a long-term priority. And the problem is that if you don't start it now, you'll never start it. It's, is it next year? Is it the year after? You're just looking, pushing it down the road. It reminds me of the International Air Facility in Ontario. That was built in a separate building in the 90s expressly for Air Canada service. Air Canada subsequently during the recession stopped service. And when I was running Aeromexico here in the US, I reopened that FIS facility with flights to Mexico. It's almost it was a prefab building that served the purpose very well. And it's something that, we could find room on our airport here as well. And it's something that, could be a consideration if, for example, the regional concourse expansion is something that doesn't, fit the requirements.
Appreciate for your comments. Anyone else?
Yes,
Mr. Chairman.
yes, I can. I've sort of taken middle ground between Peter, Mr. Miller, and Rolf. And I agree that the master plan for the car rental facility is number 1, but as Mr. Miller stated, there's going to be a ton of federal money out there. And I think that that's also gives us an opportunity. I think some of these items should be combined, basically. And the integrated transportation system should be combined, in my opinion, with the rental car facility. I'm also strongly in favor of the International Air Service and what has to be done to do that, to implement that. But if I remember correctly, in 2019, we were worried about running out of gates. And if we're going to have 5% growth at some point, no matter what, whatever we have for regional concourse has to be expanded. And maybe we need to look at, in our strategic planning, we need to look at what that concourse is going to be. Maybe it's a concourse that serves both international and domestic and has flexibility like you see at DFW and other places. So that's why, and I agree that the airport concession is an ongoing thing, and I don't think it should be one of the items sent to City Council. So my proposal is the master plan for the car rental, but also include the integrated transportation system as part of that planning, so that maybe we can get a ton of federal funds to do that. I know they won't fund the car rental facility, but they will fund, if we make provisions for additional types of transportation, we get money for that. and that's free funds. And then number two, look at international travel and with combination of the expansion of the regional airport facility, regional concourse. Again, tons of federal money available to help fund that over and above what the airlines are going to give us for rental charges. That's my opinion.
Thank you, Ken. Anyone else?
Mr.
Yes,
Chairman?
I also have a comment to make, please. Is this Commissioner Suero? I'm sure we all aware, and it's always on capital projects. Our number one asset at the airport is our runway. We have two, our main runway. So that's also something that we get funding, and it's our number one asset. It's our number one item that we always take care. So I'm sure we'll have some of these federal funds to go to that. And I also want to thank all the commissioners because you all provided really good points, and they're all priorities. And strategically, we can work together to move them forward. We can start with US pre-clearance, getting more flights that we're not getting right now. That's a way of getting international. At the same time, we plan for the future. And as we heard comments, there are facilities that don't take that much. And it can be a new asset, a new improvement, and it just complements our growing, market. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Was
can
there-
I add something?
Go ahead, David.
So, the city council asked us for 2 items. So that's always hard to just come up with 2. And, being around politicians for a long time, politicians answer the questions they want to answer, not necessarily the ones they're asked. So what I'm keep hearing here is that we have more than 2 items, and that's creating a challenge here. But I think there's a theme to a bunch of these items, which is they fall under the category of infrastructure. And within infrastructure, a bunch of these items really work together, are interrelated, and are, for the most part, strategic questions that we need to address sometime or another. So I don't know what our deadline is to the council, but I would propose that we aggregate up a bunch of these items under the rubric of infrastructure and address them in an integrated fashion.
Thank you, David. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
This is Commissioner Payne. I just want to throw my support behind, I think it's Commissioner Miller in regards to ITS. I think that's a huge issue that services not only the airport, but the greater Coachella Valley and Palm Springs specifically. There are a number of things you could do, and certainly federal funding will follow that. A question for clarification. I noticed on the handout that there was a listing by points of, I believe, commissioners voting. And is that just, it was just basically, this is where we were at the time we took the vote, and what's before us now is picking just 2?
Well, the process was that each commissioner was to submit 2 priorities. And this is
result.
the combination of all of those. And then Ulysses and his team put a ranking with the number of the same item submitted. And that's how we came up with the contract at 21.
Got it. Very good. And I guess I would also support the idea that the RFP for concessions is already in process. Again, what Commissioner Miller said, and is already in process and in working through the system. So it's already on a go path. Thank you.
Ulysses, can you answer that?
The RFP The in-terminal concessions agreement is one that currently is suspended. As identified earlier, Parodies has an existing agreement that goes through April of 2023. Our plan is to move, working hopefully with Ricondo and Associates. You have a separate item tonight to consider additional funding to help us through that process. But regardless of that, to be able to work through developing a new RFP to be released in time to have new concessions in place by May 1st of a new concession agreement and a new vendor in place by May of 2023, giving them the summer to build out all of the facilities or most of those facilities in time for the fall service when it starts to return again. So we have it on our radar as staff. We have a proposed timeline to be able to hit that date of May 2023 with the new vendor. What was sent to most of you, and you all should have received it, including Commissioner Payne, was a letter from Mr. Bernstein, who identified an urgency on his perspective to make sure that we expedited that and moved sooner than later. And to tell you the truth, that timeline that he identified in his letter is more conservative, more aggressive, and starts the process quicker than what we as a staff plan to do. But it's not to say that we can't move that up, and that's not necessarily anything that would be hard to do, to be able to move that up to make sure that the proposed timeframes that Mr. Bernstein identified would be able to accommodate the need to go to bid, give the potential vendors an opportunity to assess the existing facilities and make realistic proposals and be able to negotiate an agreement with the May 1st, 2023 transition date.
Ulysses, thank you for giving us this update. Changing subject, my question is that how will our city manager feel that the commission submits 3 priorities, knowing that the request is for 2?
I think,
Mr. Chairman, may I quickly interject?
Please.
I would like for everyone to consider what Commissioner Feldman proposed, because I think if we are consolidating some of these items into a different heading, i.e. what he proposed, that may be one way of getting there.
I was going to suggest the same thing, Mr. Chairman. Infrastructure is a broad enough. I think the idea of doing a detailed strategic planning is a good one, because this is a very difficult way to be able to have a good discussion on Zoom. And I think all of us would like to have a little more thoughts and personal contact, and across the table types of things to make such momentous decisions. But I think I agree with both the commissioners that mentioned maybe we integrate something under a general time or a general heading called infrastructure and put examples so the council understands what we're talking about under that. I still think the concessions can be off the table as one of our strategic plans, because it is going. And whether it goes quicker or slower, as Ulysses said, it's still going to go. It's an operational must, and so I don't think we should spend a lot of time with that. I think we definitely need to look at some of these other things and understand, as I mentioned before, the resources that are going to be needed. But I think I really truly believe that if we put maybe make the car rental facility 1 and then other infrastructure is 2 or something of that nature, and examples of the infrastructure underneath that, then that gives enough for the council, because one of the commissioners said, yes, they are politicians. and they'll read into whatever we give them. And that's not a bad thing. That's just a fact. And that then that gives the commission real time to be able to discuss this in detail, because we're talking about very important things. And I don't think a 1 hour Zoom call is going to be sufficient for all the commissioners to be able to vet this and to be able to speak their minds and come up with a consensus.
Well said, Mr. Miller. Well said.
Thank you.
So, Ulysses, what is our deadline to submit our priorities?
The
So,
request was for September 30th to submit it.
so I'd like to make this, Ken, this is Ken. So I'd like to make number 2, proceed per a master plan with an infrastructure expansion and airport service, international air facilities expansion, which will maximize the receipt of federal funding. Something like that.
Is that the motion, Ken, you're making?
Sure. That leaves it general, but it puts the international air service up there. We know we're going to have expansion of infrastructure, what they may be, a redesign of the international, of the regional concourse, or a new building, have solar on it. You know, to me, that's all integrated.
May I ask something?
Second the motion.
Okay. May I interject?
Sure.
Please.
Is it possible to just, for instead of airport development as our second priority, put infrastructure, and then as examples, put all of the things that we have as headers: the arrivals, baggage claim modernization, regional concourse expansion, use of solar energy, integrate all of those under the heading of infrastructure.
I'll amend my.
Mr. Chairman, just as a reminder for everyone, I don't think the City Council is meeting on the subject until November, and we have one more shot at this in our October meeting, just as a reminder.
If I may, Chair?
Please.
Yes, I just wanted to add in one more note about the RFP for the concessions. And I do feel that that is something that is due. It has a deadline. We can meet the deadline in a short amount of time. 2 years is a very short time to do. But I think it deserves some special attention if we want to bring the locals into it. And that seems to be a prime thing these days, of bringing the local community, which we want to do, into being part of our airport. And I think the local businesses are primed to be invited to participate, but there will need to be special attention to how bringing them in, how to vet the process. But the RFPs need to be done. And it would be nice to have that success completed and not buried. So that's just where I wanted to add.
And that was really the reason that myself and Kevin, knowing that we have a deadline and a milestone to achieve, that's why we selected airport concession, in spite of the fact it only received 6 points over the international customs immigration facilities.
Mr. Chairman, we can always carve out the airport concession. It does not necessarily have to be part of this. We can carve this out and have a separate motion on the airport concessions.
Can I add something here?
Please.
I keep thinking that concessions are actually a critical part of our infrastructure. I mean, to me, it gets, I agreed with Gerald's suggestion. That was kind of what I was thinking. Let's take that group and use those as examples and add airport concession. There's nothing more, that's probably the most seen situation in our airport. From the time you get out the revolving doors, all you're seeing is concessions. To me, that's infrastructure and how we want that experience to be for for our travelers. So just wrap it up under that same rubric so we can be specific and include it for those who legitimately are concerned that it's going to get lost.
May I just add something to that, please?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I have to go back to what would the city council think if we added a third item, as our chair said, but what will they think if we kind of couch everything into one big lump instead of doing the work for them, of picking it out? Now they have to do the work all over again to pick out what we want out of the whole thing. So I still think we do have to pick two items, and I favor the airport concession as one of them. But I understand we definitely need everything else that you're talking about. I just think that that's something that perhaps we proceed as a commission and get it ready for the city council in the direction that we have communication with them along the way and get a piece ready.
David, one of the things, I mean, you're right, but one of the things is short term and the other one is long term, and we need to differentiate. And I think we should carve out the concession part because that's more of an urgent nature. That needs to be, I think needs to be dealt separately.
All right, so we discussed and deliberated enough. Currently, we have a motion from Ken, and I believe we have a second from Rolf. Any further discussions on that?
Mr. Chairman, could you please repeat that so we're all clear of what the motion is?
Ken, can you repeat? And I would also like, Ken, that you can then send an email to Nadia with your motion.
Proceed per master plan with infrastructure expansion, and will include airport development, arrival baggage area modernization, international air services facility, regional concourse expansion, use of solar energy, and upgrade public space, mid-century decor.
And transportation?
And well, the transportation I actually think should be with the rental car, but that's.
Was that part of your
yes.
motion?
I'm sorry, what?
Is that part of your motion, Ken?
Transportation is
And we can't hear.
Integrated transportation to be also looked at as part of the rental car program.
Okay.
So we have a motion from Ken, and Ken, you'll be kind enough to make sure you email Nadia your motion.
Yes.
So we have a motion from Ken, second from Rolf.
Chairman Dada?
Yes.
In paying close attention to the commissioner's motion, Commissioner Hedrick's motion, he was very clear about the infrastructure and the subgroupings of a variety of different projects. But I didn't get a sense that the CONRAC was spoken to directly in that. Is your motion to include the CONRAC as number one and the other infrastructure projects as number two? Is that what I understood, or?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll take up, Nadia, will you take a vote, please?
Yes. Commissioner Adams,
For,
Breslin. I'm sorry, I cannot see you.
Commissioner Breslin, you're on mute, I believe.
I apologize. I wanted to make sure I heard clearly. That kicks airport concessions out of number two, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
It will
then,
be a separate, immediate priority. We'll list that as an immediate separate priority. So there'll be three. There'll be two long-term priorities, one short-term priority.
Yeah, I think I have to just submit two, so I'm going to say no.
Go ahead, Nadia.
Okay, very well. Commissioner Badillo,
Or
Burke,
And I just want to make sure I agree that it is, you're carving it out as it's an immediate one for concessions. Is that correct?
Yes.
Separate motion.
Then I agree. I am for this.
okay. Corcoran,
Building on Todd's comments, if that is the vision, I vote yes.
Chairman Dada,
Yes.
Commissioner Feltman,
yes,
Freeman,
Aye.
Hedrick,
Aye.
Hearn,
Aye.
Hughes,
Aye.
Miller,
Yes.
Payne,
yes,
Pye,
Yes.
Schmitz,
Yes.
Squirrel,
Yes, I would love to see the opportunity for local establishments in the Coachella Valley and Palm Springs to have an opportunity to be part of the airport. Yes.
Commissioner Wheel.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so we have one no and the rest all yes. Thank you all for your.
Is
thank
there
you
any
all-
way to rescind and make a yes so that we're unanimous in this?
Sure.
Yeah, that'll be terrific, Patricia.
Yes, I will. And yes, because
Thank you
it's
so much.
important.
So we will now move on to 9B.
Mr. Chairman, maybe we should follow up on Commissioner Breslin and put out a motion to put the airport concessions on the front burner.
Well, I think that's an item that's coming up on the agenda, I thought, Commissioner Freeman, wasn't it?
Is it? I'm sorry, if it is, then I stand corrected.
The next agenda item includes consulting services to assist airport staff in making sure that the RFP moves forward expeditiously and we're able to meet the target. It's not unique or dedicated strictly to the concessions.
This is for Recondo and Associates, correct?
Yes, correct.
All right, so we will let you, Ulysses, take over from here.
Okay. Just, I'm not sure what's happening with airport equipment today, but we're having a little trouble as well myself with the Zoom. So item 9B is before you to amend the existing Recondo agreement. The staff report, I believe, is pretty detailed, so I'm not going to go into a lot of the information that's in there, but I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. The current agreement has been amended since 2017. At first, there are currently 7 tasks that were identified and agreed to for a total of $561,000. Many of those tasks were completed early, associated with the PFC program to fund the the ticketing wing renovation project. But there were some projects that Recondo was assisting us with when COVID hit. That would have been the car rental CFC, as well as the in-terminal concessions, the RFP for a new concession agreement, as well as negotiations with the airlines for a new airport use and lease agreement. So for the last 18 months, all those 3 programs have been suspended. We believe now it is the right time to restart since there has been 18 months behind us with COVID and the industry starting to stabilize a little bit, and Palm Springs resiliency in both the market and its brand is showing strong here through the summer months, which we have good momentum going into the future. And to be able to ensure that we are able to meet some deadlines with some of those tasks that we're looking for, some of those efforts, we're proposing to amend the existing Recondo agreement to go through June 30th, 2023, add a total amount of $136,400, broken down into 3 tasks. One is for airline negotiation consulting services, which will help staff be able to negotiate a new airport use and lease agreement. That amount of effort would be $58,100. Task number 9 would be in-terminal concessions consulting services for $58,300. This one in particular ties directly into the discussion that was just had to ensure that the new RFP is released, to have a new concessions agreement in place for a new vendor May 1st, but also to ensure that there is an outreach to local businesses to basically be able to participate in that new concession agreement. Task number 10 would be on-call services for business and financial consulting services that would help us put together a proposed plan on how to utilize the remaining CARES, CRISA, and ARPA stimulus grant funds for COVID-19. This year, we have $80,000 that we budgeted for. If we expedite the in-terminal concessions agreement, it would probably require us to do some budget transfers to augment the 80,000 by tapping into some savings that we anticipate here throughout the year in our budget. And the balance of this amount would be put into next year's budget to basically finish out the June 30th, 2023 timeline. And the June 30th, 2023 timeline is basically picked because that is when the new RFP for new concessions would be have to be in place. So we would have Ricardo and Associates help us all the way through development of the RFP, negotiating an agreement, and implementing that agreement for the new concessionaire. So that summarizes this request here. I'm available for any questions.
Mr. Chairman, I've got some questions.
Please.
Thank you. I want to make sure that all the amounts that you have indicated, number one, Ulysses, the memo was very good. So whoever wrote the memo should get a gold star because it was very good, very detailed, but also very well written. So congratulations to whoever wrote the memo or the report. So the first thing is that all of the amounts that you indicated on the 3 projects or the 3 sections, they're all time and material, and they are all not to exceed numbers, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Number 2 is you mentioned about what items, and I know that part of the agreement is to study this, but what are we talking about, the types of things that might be used by the grants that other airports have used, especially the CARE grants and some of the other things? Could you just educate me in, like a sentence or 2 of what things we're talking about possibly?
So I'm going to take about 5 sentences. So real quick, each one of the 3 grants has distinct differences in how that money can be used. The original CARES grant was much more liberal with least restrictions. And as each one of the subsequent grants were given, the CRISA and then the ARPA, they became a little bit less generous and tightened up some of the requirements for how those monies can be used. It got closer and closer to basically be able to use money more, not so generous for capital projects and much more for operations, and really focused in on trying to do stuff to try to mitigate the pathogen from spreading was kind of the main focus. That said, is what the airport originally did. We anticipated when CARES grant first came out that we would have a shortfall of about $8 million that first year, depending obviously on the rebound of the traffic. And so we have not been aggressive in using the CARES grant or any of the stimulus funds because our revenue has come up relatively strong relative to what we anticipated. And so we have been very conservative in tapping into those dollar amounts to make sure that if we did have any future shortfalls, we'd be able to use that CARE grants to do that. We think we are over that concern, especially if the Delta variant didn't knock us off right now. We think we're looking very strong going into our peak season, which is February, March, and April, where our revenue will return back to our normal levels. So that allows us then to basically be able to start programming some of these stimulus funds for some additional, more aggressive operational considerations. We might be able to tap it into some capital expenditure as well, maybe to upgrade some of our restrooms with some automated touchless type of equipment, throw some more janitorial services in place, and be able to take on things like that. We have 4 years from the date that the agreements were individually issued. They were all, the grants were issued at different timeframes. So we're basically looking at a 2023, 2024 timeframe for us to basically be able to use those CARE grants. And so we want to have Recondo help us to make sure that we meet all the requirements, identify the correct projects, and basically be able to draw them down in a manner that does not really impact our agreement with the airlines as well under the airport use and lease agreement. I'm sorry that
And I assume the commission will have some say in terms of where those grant funds will be spent.
I'm not sure we've gotten that far yet, but I don't see any reason why they would not be.
Okay.
Why
And then
the commission would not be
final-
involved. So.
Okay. And my final, I'm sorry, my fellow commissioners, I don't mean to hog the time here, but I'm, and you and Ulysses and we've talked a little bit about this, is I'm concerned that when we use consultants so heavily, the staff, the airport staff and the city staff, and I'm a consultant, so the airport staff and the city staff lose a lot of the knowledge and the moving forward to be able to do a lot of things themselves that we don't have to pay consultants for. And I'm wondering how, and maybe we can answer this later, how as part of this agreement, can we transfer a lot of that knowledge from the consultant to city staff and to airport staff, so that maybe we don't need to use city staff to augment concession leases or to do other things that I think city staff are capable of doing, may not have the time now, but capable of doing, or we augment city staff, airport staff to be able to take over some of those roles.
And I don't disagree, and let me just put it in the positive. I completely agree. I think one of the things that we have been doing as we move forward with Recondo, because the current team that's in place now with Victoria, Harry, and Daniel are relatively new to the airport. In the last 18 months, all three of them have joined the airport. So we are making sure that when we talk to Recondo, which is the primary consultant we're talking about now, that we are truly being educated. We're working with them, so that way we do obtain that knowledge to help us out in the future. These efforts before us are efforts that only occur every 5 to 15 years, and in the care of the grants, it's never been done before. So these are unique one-off stuff, instead of not utilizing consultants for everyday tasks that we would be doing on a repetitive basis, where those skill sets would not be perishable. I completely agree. These are a little bit unique only in the standpoint that they do occur every 5 or 6 years, and then regulations, as you know, by the federal government, and things change all the time.
Okay.
So, Commissioner Miller, these are very complex issues, and it presumes that staff has that knowledge. So I agree, whenever possible, we should keep it in-house. But I mean, there are certain issues you will have to rely on outside consultants.
All right, thank you everyone for your comments. Having said that, Ulysses, would you like this commission to bless the amended agreement with Ricardo and Associates?
Yes, and that way I can include that in my report to City Council as they consider this request before them.
I make a motion to approve staff recommendation.
I second.
So we have a motion from Peter, and we have a second from
Kathleen.
Kathleen, I'm sorry. Any other comment from anyone? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Adams,
For,
Breslin,
Yes,
Budillo,
Or
Burke,
Yes.
Corcoran,
Yes.
Chairman Dada,
Yes.
Commissioner Feltman,
yes,
Freeman,
Aye.
Hedrick,
Yes.
Hearn,
Aye.
Hughes,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
I,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Swearrow,
Yes.
Wheel.
Yes.
So we have a unanimous support. We move on to 225 South El Cielo.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Dada. At this point in time, we'd like to report back as requested by the commission on the Martha's Village and Kitchen at the Boxing Center, Cooling Center. With that, I'll let Jay Barada speak first, and then Captain will speak following, and then I'll give the airport's observations regarding incidents. Jay?
hey, just to interrupt, would you mind stop sharing your screen, Ulysses, if you're finished with it? Thank you.
Great. Hello, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Jay Barada, Community and Economic Development Director for Palm Springs.